might be the moment.
Feels a bit like that, doesn't it? Let's see what they bolt on.
Well, he's led his 250th lap here at the Circuit of the Americas. It's the hard compound tyre, and it wasn't the fastest stop I've seen Mercedes put in. It's 3.6 seconds, which is about a second slower stationary than they normally would have wished for. Leclerc leads, Russell second, Norris third, Verstappen fourth, Hamilton fifth now.
It's awful when you're trundling down the pit lane. You can hear your rivals going past flat out at 150, 200 miles an hour. And then they appear in your vision as well, just to really rub salt in the wounds.
Look, we'll see how this race pans out, but I just have this little feeling in the back of my mind that Mercedes should have reacted a bit sooner and come in with Lewis Hamilton, as there goes Esteban Ocon making his way past the Haas of Nico Hülkenberg, and after his pit stop, and we can see the Ferrari now making its way into turn one of Carlos Sainz. Must be such a lovely corner to cruise into and then get past someone.
Tell you what, it's a long way back there, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Lando Norris on George Russell. Norris has stopped, Russell hasn't. It's an easy one there for Lando Norris, the early race leader in this race, and could still find himself in a very handy position by the time those ahead have pitted and those ahead that need to pit. Charles Leclerc, of course, and George Russell, who is coming in now. Mercedes telling him to box. So whilst Mercedes might just have slipped up a little bit, I think McLaren will be happy with the pace that they've got, and I think Red Bull, with the pace that Verstappen's got, will be absolutely delighted.
They're still in it, Mercedes. They just wanted to go a little bit further. Ted's in the pit.
So far behind. Yeah, copy. We are just offsetting.
Yeah, but the problem with offsetting is that you're hoping that your opponent, in this case, well, A, Max Verstappen, Red Bull, and B, Lando Norris and McLaren, have tyre degradation later on in the stint. And certainly in the case of Red Bull, that ain't happening this weekend. It's barely happening at any point throughout the season. The Red Bull's tyre degradation is so good that I'm not sure whether they're sort of chasing shadows at Mercedes. Anyway, Russell's pitted and he's out.
So is the Mercedes thought then that on the same strategy, we are never going to beat Max Verstappen and Red Bull? We've got to try something different. It's our only hope on
to get
one.
Norris.
Yeah, but the trouble is, 2 laps of fresher tyres, I'm not sure is going to make a huge amount of difference. And it's not a gamble, but the intention, I'm not sure it's going to work out for them. We'll see.
Well, we have to wait and see how the hard compound tyre fares, don't we? Lando Norris doing nicely with it at the moment. They're still homing in on Charles Leclerc.
Slow pit stop as well.
Right front was a bit reluctant to go back on, wasn't it? I think they were doing a wing change there, which you tend to do between compounds, front wing change. You're out of parc fermé conditions, of course, as soon as the race starts.
Yeah.
Not that you're going to be changing a lot of parts.
Not during a pit stop. 1.8 seconds for McLaren, of course, in Qatar. New world record pit stop. Here's some fast pace from Pierre Gasly, who has to go around the outside, as George Russell is still there on the inside, and Russell fought that one off rather well. George Russell, after pitting for a set of hard compound tyres, he's not in the mood to concede a place there to Pierre Gasly. And that was rather robust defending from Russell, but it looked pretty fair on any given Sunday's worth of racing action.
Alex Albon's just had 2 track limit warnings in 2 laps.
Ouch.
So, yeah, we're going to see some penalties towards the end that could play out with the points paying positions. Lewis Hamilton with a personal best in the 141s. That's nearly 2 seconds quicker than Charles Leclerc out in the lead.
So Charles Leclerc hasn't pitted yet in the lead of this race. Lando Norris is looking in decent shape, lapping at the moment within about 1/10 of a second of Max Verstappen. And yes, so do we love Formula One too. And isn't it great to see 425,000 plus Formula One fans loving the action here this weekend. Great to see Daniel Ricciardo back racing too. He's just pitted down to 15th. Fernando Alonso, meanwhile, who I don't think, has pitted, is running the medium compounds once again, now ahead of Alex Albon, and back to the fringes of the points.
There's a bit of chatter on the radio that used mediums are probably better than new hard compound tyres. So the medium was a pretty good tyre, wasn't it, in the sprint yesterday? And now we're finding out, we said it was going to be an adventure with these
Lando, our race is with Verstappen. He's gone medium, so has to stop again. We think plan B. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so.
So do the offset, something different to Red Bull.
Two stop and go with him as finally Leclerc pits.
Yeah, so they're going to go medium. They're on a two-stopper. If we do a one-stopper, we think that we could get him because there's 21 seconds out there that we're not losing by coming into the pits an extra time.
Depends what they're calling plan A and plan B, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
right. So Leclerc pits then from the lead of this race. Lando Norris retakes the lead of this race. Max Verstappen 2.5 seconds behind him. Lewis Hamilton back up into the podium places is third. Then comes Carlos Sainz. Then comes Sergio Perez. And now Charles Leclerc, who makes his way onto the racetrack with a set of hard tyres on. He could very much do a one-stop strategy, given that we're on lap 24. And if the hards, you know, do turn out to have the pace, should have the durability between now and the checkered flag.
Right, so now we can sort of see how it's all shaking out, can't we? Now Leclerc is back on the track. He's behind Perez and Sainz now. So Verstappen's the big winner out of that phase because he pitted first.
Said that Fernando Alonso was making some progress. He very much is making some progress. This is Alonso down towards turn 12, past Zhou Guanyu. That's Fernando Alonso up into the points from a pit lane start, running the old spec Aston Martin. And while we look at that, Kevin Magnussen might be being told he's just been shown a black and white flag for track limits. One more, and it's a 5-second penalty, young Kevin.
Yeah, they have to push their luck up against the track limit. There's a bit of time in it. So you could make the line 3 meters wide, if you like, the white line. They'll still go to the far side of it because it's quicker.
So last time out, we saw Oscar Piastri win his first race in Formula One. It was the sprint in Qatar. This time around, here at COTA, it's Lando Norris and the Papaya that is leading a race, and this time it's a Grand Prix, and we've seen Lando Norris lead a Grand Prix before, but this is looking a fairly healthy situation on paper for him at the moment.
And we've got a Sky F1 behind-the-scenes crew at McLaren all weekend. You'll see it next weekend when we're in Mercedes, so looking forward to that. They're leading the race, and there should be some juicy footage and stories there.
It's a bit disconcerting. Our camera crew keep coming in.
We are with the same strategy as Russell behind, with a heart.
So anything you need to defend, because he's coming at you with pace. That's Lando Norris locking up there. That will put a smile, I'm sure, on the face of Christian Horner on the Red Bull pit wall, because he's joining us right now. Lando locking up, Max chasing him, only a 1.5 seconds behind now, Christian.
Yeah, it's starting to close up at the front there. Obviously an offset on tyre compound, so we're committed to a 2. Going to be interesting to see what Lando does, but it's going to be a very interesting second half of the race.
Presumably Max has just been biding his time a little bit, has he, Christian?
He's been finding his way into the race. I mean, it's easy to do damage to these tyres, and obviously very windy out there, but the McLaren's quick, the Mercedes is pretty quick, so still a lot of racing to do.
And what's your take on the hard compound tyre stuff? I know you haven't got it on Max's car, but what's your feeling about it?
There's a huge amount in it. I mean, looking at Lando's lap, this lap, it's again within a tenth of Max so far around. So yeah, it's interesting to see that last sector as well. It's started. There is a bit of a difference there.
Christian, thanks ever so much. Back with you in a little while. That was Alex Albon on Zhou Guanyu. Seemed to come from a fairly long way back to make that overtake stick. Nice one for Alex Albon, who's finding a little bit of pace there, and now 11th, about 5 seconds behind Fernando Alonso.
I hope Williams can get him a front-running car, or if not, he gets in a front-running car, because I think it'd be a completely different Alex Albon that we saw up against Max Verstappen in the Works Red Bull team. He's driving beautifully.
He certainly is.
So we can use these tyres. Norris pushing more in. I'm trying.
Right, he's trying. Verstappen is cruising a little bit up to the back of Lando Norris now. I have to say, on these current tyres, Max Verstappen is finding all sorts of pace ahead against Lando Norris. Norris on the hard compound tyre. And you do get the feeling, Martin, that Well, those used mediums or new mediums might just be a better tyre than the hards, and McLaren committed to running hards in this race early on this weekend. They saved 2 sets of hard tyres for Lando and for Oscar right from the beginning.
Yeah, and Lando Norris pushing really hard, but even the Red Bull behind him was sliding around a little bit into turn 12. But this is, you know, that horrible dream when you're in a tunnel and somebody's catching you, somebody's chasing after you. But I think Verstappen is just walking in that tunnel behind us. I think he's just coasting along, and he's got it all under control.
He's got DRS. He's doing a bit more than walking, I think, down this main straight. But I know what you mean. It's if someone was to play the theme from Jaws in Lando Norris's earphones at the moment, he'd know exactly what was happening.
Yeah, they're mates, these two, aren't they? But not when the crash helmet goes on and that little switch behind your ear gets pushed down. That all goes out of the window.
Norris and Verstappen, the battle for first, lap 27 of 56 here at the Circuit of the Americas. Joe Guanyu being told to let his teammate pass because he's struggling a bit, and his teammate has the pace behind him, both on the same hard compound tyre. So a little switch coming up there. Are we going to get a switch for the lead here, I wonder? Down the straight, it's not exactly sluggish, is that McLaren, but stalking Lando Norris behind with DRS. Here now comes Max Verstappen, just pulls out from behind the gearbox of the McLaren. Nothing doing on that particular occasion, and I think Lando Norris has had...
Give me a hell of a gap to close. Yeah, copy Lewis, let's just see what we can do.
Has had another lap deleted for track limits, so he's got to watch that as well.
Verstappen might be happy enough just getting a bit of a slipstream with the DRS open for a while, as long as he's not hurting his tyres, if he's got enough speed to catch and pass Lando Norris. But they're now 7 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton, as you can see, Norris, that is, to Hamilton. And that is what Lewis is talking about. Yeah, you've given me too much to do here.
Yeah, but what I would say, though, is Lewis is, you know, by 4/10 on the last lap and by about 6/10 on the previous lap, bringing that gap down between himself and Lando Norris. It's hovering around about 6.5 seconds at the moment. It's a big chase. However, he seems to be up for it currently. There's a turn 12 incident involving Sargent and Stroll that's been noted by race control, and I think Stroll went off the track in that particular incident, and I'm sure we'll see it in a moment. But let's have a look at this once more, because this is the battle for the lead. Max Verstappen, who has led so many races and won so many races during the course of this year, would like to do it once more. And Norris has gone wide there, Martin, hasn't he?
A little bit, and McLaren's a little bit ponderous in those corners. It's not its strength at the moment. As Verstappen then rear wing open.
He's going for it, he's going for it, he's going for it. He's having a look down the inside, is Max Verstappen, and he takes the lead of the race. And Lando Norris is going to try and fight him back a bit, because he did go a touch deep, but on the inside line into the next corner, Verstappen will preserve that lead. And after winning 4 consecutive races in the US and then the sprint yesterday, is Max Verstappen now on course for 5 Grand Prix in a row here in the United States.
So I think McLaren now have to think about staying ahead of Mercedes-Benz and Ferrari. I don't think they've got the pace to match a Red Bull in free air. I don't want to be, you know, give up too easily on that.
I don't know if he went off or not. Hard to see from my side.
I don't believe he did.
But the hope for Norris and the hope for McLaren is that they've got their strategy right this afternoon, and that a one-stop will eventually be the fastest way to go from lights out to the checkered flag. Because we know that Verstappen's stopping again, and we know that McLaren are wanting to stop just the once.
Yeah, this is from a long way back, isn't it? Slipstream, DRS, and then Dan Deere on the brakes. And no, he kept his left-hand tyres in play. Had the inside line then for the next tricky little double right. Valiant to come back aim from Lando, but a little bit futile. The Red Bull had track position and the grip. Great camera work, I'm enjoying that.
What we're going to see here, Martin, is what we often see, and sadly at the moment we're seeing Oscar Piastri watching from the sidelines. He and Esteban Ocon out after the two clashed early on. What we're seeing is potentially another typical COTA Grand Prix, where in the last 10 laps or so, it's all going to come to fruition, and we'll get different strategies and different offset the tyres, and we'll get a difference in the pecking order potentially.
Yeah. Can Mercedes, can McLaren believe they can get to the end of the race? Will they be slower than a slow thing if they do, or will the tyres hang on? We're about to find out.
What Norris needs to do for a couple of laps, if he can, and he's just gone out at that 1 second now, is to stay within DRS and Max Verstappen, and that hasn't happened. They're heading down the main straight currently. The stewards, by the way, looking at that incident, turn 12, Sargent and Stroll, where I think Stroll feels that he was forced off the track somewhat. That was a battle for 12th place. Meanwhile, Ted Kravitz, what's caught your eye?
A couple of things from down here. First of all, Alex Albon's on the radio saying his tyres are done, and that's reflected in the lap times. Everyone around him's doing a 1:41. He just did a 1:43, so has dropped some time. And I'm hearing a lot on the team radio feed, Crofty, about people on the hard tyres just really, really struggling. And that's making me think that Lando just won't be able to do the one stop from here. I think it's going to be really tough. I know it's a possible strategy, but he's going to have to treat these tyres with such kid gloves, and then that's going to leave them vulnerable to a recovering Hamilton. We'll keep across it.
Yeah, I would suggest that Hamilton's got a bit more pace on the hard tyre than Lando Norris has. Quite a lot more pace on the hard tyre than Lando Norris has. You saw Alex Albon dive into the pits, by the way. Ted says he was struggling on his tyres, and pit stop straight after.
What not going to go to? Extend, for now, extend, that's the best bet. What lap is extend, Ricky? Be clear. Switch Sierra +2.
And you've also got Charles Leclerc and George Russell potentially on a one-stop here, and Carlos Sainz thinking, right, I'm on a two-stop, but what do I need to do? And he's just set a fastest lap of the race, pacing that Ferrari.
Yeah, Norris is just back under the 1 second again. He's got the DRS down the back straight and homing in on Verstappen actually. So Norris got himself back in with that crucial DRS range there on lap 31. We haven't seen them lately, but he's hanging on to the back of Verstappen.
So Verstappen took the lead on this race exactly at half distance on lap 28. And Norris is coming back at him, pushing just a little bit more. Got DRS on this lap. At turn 11, every time he's...
Track limits, Verstappen, second last corner.
Okay.
Now in a position where he's trying to report back if Max Verstappen goes off track at all. That corner there, turn 11, that's the Achilles heel for McLaren this weekend. That's where they've not been great. We saw Lando not lock up. They've not been brilliant through that, and it's costing him a bit down the straight, but fair play with DRS. Norris is starting to get back at Verstappen a bit.
It has. There's something flapping around on the front of the McLaren, on the nose of the McLaren. You could just see it from the cockpit there of Lando Norris. Anthony Davis, what can you tell us?
This offset is starting to work here in Mercedes' favour and not going Max's way right now. He had just enough juice in his tyres to get the overtake done on Norris, but you're starting to see that offset now because he was the first stopper, of course, out of this trio. So I'm not surprised to see Norris hanging on at this stage. He's back within DRS range, so this is really helping Norris. Meanwhile, Lewis is catching both of them.
Yeah. Towards
the end of the race, Verstappen will have to go onto the hard. I think Mercedes and McLaren's plan is to get back on the medium.
You do. So not a one-stop strategy, but an offset again.
Exactly.
With Red Bull.
And on top of that, Max, I can tell that he's not exactly comfortable because he keeps asking what the gap is behind him. I wouldn't say flustered, but mildly concerned at that gap.
Yeah, he certainly hasn't taken off, perhaps like I expected, I must say. But keep an eye on Perez as well. He's 12.5 seconds off the lead and quietly been pumping in some decent lap time. So 12.5 seconds covers the top 5.
I love this race. every year we come here, and every year it keeps you guessing a little bit, and it gives the teams a little bit of strategic variability, or variety even. If I've just made up a word, I apologise. I was watching the Haas get its way, Nico Hülkenberg, down the back straight past Logan Sargent's, and staying within track limits as well. That's how you do it. Well done, Nico.
Flew past him, didn't he?
He did. Now, this lap, a couple of tenths, Max Verstappen faster than Lando Norris. And there's your different tyres. What you're not going to see is anything red, really, this afternoon, unless someone wants a very late pit stop to go for the fastest lap of the race. That's what we had last year. George Russell was the only one to use the C4. He did it just to set the fastest lap right at the end. George Russell at the moment wouldn't be doing that this afternoon because he hasn't got a big enough gap between himself and Pierre Gasly. Finds himself down in 7th place. Ahead of them, Charles Leclerc, who's a bit of a way off Sergio Perez, who, to be fair, having a decent race here. Sergio Perez started 9th on the grid, made his way now up into 5th. Carlos Sainz running a solid race for Ferrari. His teammate Charles Leclerc, offset strategy to him, currently running 6th. And then there's a top 3. Where the wind, Lewis Hamilton says, has got very strong all of a sudden, and it is increasing. I can see it now on our monitors. 4 seconds, the gap between Hamilton and Norris. Norris out of DRS range of Max Verstappen, who's had to start pushing just that little bit more. But is he pushing too hard? And will he live to regret that at the end? Race leader, but not as comfortable a race lead for Max Verstappen as we've seen recently.
As you talked about the offset for Leclerc, his tyres are 6 laps younger than Verstappen's, for example. But they've definitely lost track position at Ferrari. Remember, they were 2-3 early on, 4-6 now, but they'll need that grip later on if they're going to recover any of that.
Logan Sargent pits again, and this time from 14th. So a second stop in the race for him. Alex Albon, his teammate, moves up then into that 14th spot. Williams haven't scored a point here for quite a while. Felipe Massa finished 9th in 2017, last time that we saw Williams taking a point. We've seen Max Verstappen win here for the last couple of years. We've seen Lando Norris finish 7th, 8th and 6th on course for his first podium here at COTA, and we've seen Lewis Hamilton win 5 times at this track. And if you look at his record here at COTA over the years, just the once, 2013, that he didn't finish on the podium.
The race finished now, McLaren will be up to 4th in the World Championship, and they were last after 2 races earlier on in the season. That's what you call an update, isn't it?
Well, they took their time. They realised, you know, faster you can identify the problem, quicker you can find a solution, but then you've got to make sure that solution works at a racetrack.
Our magic brakes are so compared to yesterday. What a piece of
Understood.
Told you he wasn't comfortable out in front. And that's Max Verstappen getting a bit het up with the brakes, which are maybe starting to overheat a touch. It's not a heavy braking track, this, Martin. Was it 5 braking zones? Only 3 described as heavy, but it is hot.
Yeah, I talked about his patience earlier on, didn't I? But yeah, we call it perhaps one of the greatest Formula 1 cars of all time, and it seems Max has a different terminology for it sometimes.
Yeah, so McLaren, they bided their time. They brought the upgrade with Lando Norris to Austria, fully understood it, and it has been the second highest scoring car since the Austrian Grand Prix. Second to Red Bull, of course.
Max is thrown away.
It's more like Norris is coming to you.
He can see the car in front. He can't see necessarily what's happening to Max Verstappen. And I think Lando Norris was asked a few moments ago to up his pace. That's because he's coming in for a pit stop. So, second pit stop in the race for McLaren. And are they trying the undercuts, trying to bring Red Bull in just a little bit sooner as well? They've gone on to another set of hard compound tyres. Not surprising, they kept 2 back for this race.
They only made 17 laps on those tyres. They didn't go any further than his starting set of medium, exactly 17 laps.
2 second stationary stop for Lando Norris. It was another fine stop from the McLaren crew, but he comes out 6 on the track. How do Red Bull now respond to this? Do they say, look, we can get Lando Norris with an overtake again, or do they think we need to bring Max in now to cover it all off? We shall see. 6 seconds the gap between Verstappen and Hamilton. Verstappen is pulling away by about 2 or 3 tenths of a second a lap to the Mercedes.
Now, is this a good thing? The teams really didn't get much setup time, and they're having to make a lot of guesstimations because of the sprint weekend. Is that good or bad? Let's discuss. It's certainly putting a variable into the race.
I think what I'm loving is that different teams are trying different things out there. Unlike Qatar, where we had the 18 laps and then you got a pit, folks, here there's a whole load of strategic variables. Gap to Verstappen, 23 seconds, Lando Norris, but he's got fresh boots now and he can push, and the fuel is burning out, and they are responding at Red Bull. So this lap from Lando Norris, where he's been pushing hard, is going to try and get him back into this lead of the race once more. Verstappen stops, the Red Bull crew get to work, and that was a little bit slow by Red Bull standards, 3.3 seconds. So Norris had a 1.3 second advantage in the pit stop. He might actually get him here on the undercut. Let's have a look. Out goes Carlos Sainz, 2.2 seconds. That's a bit more like it. Here comes Verstappen. There's Leclerc. There's Norris coming into the picture now. Verstappen's going to slow down into turn 1, and he didn't quite get him, Lando Norris, but he is a lot closer, I would imagine, now than he was before those pit stops.
And Max, as the tyres come out of the blankets at 70 degrees, he needs to get them well over 100. And so I think Norris will continue to catch him for a few corners, but crucially, Verstappen, Red Bull, maintain track position over Norris, and of course Leclerc is on a completely different strategy.
And the thing to remember, Anthony Davidson, is that unlike the middle stints, both the McLaren and the Red Bull now on the same compounder tyre.
I was surprised, actually, Crofty, that McLaren didn't go onto the mediums. I've heard from Mercedes they're planning on getting onto those mediums for that last stint. And combined with that offset, could be very interesting towards the end of the race. On top of that, Lewis has been asked to save a little bit of fuel for pushing at the end of the race.
Interesting. Second pit stop for Max Verstappen, a little bit slow. Wasn't quite as slow as his 11-second pit stop here last year, of course.
Yeah. No, the left rear looks a bit sticky for whatever reason. And you can save fuel by lifting and coasting. You lift early, let the aerodynamic, let the drag slow the car down, brake a little bit later into a corner. So you keep decent speed up, and if you really ace that, actually you lose very little time. You lose some time, but that saves fuel, because these cars are always under fuel when they start the race. They expect some kind of drama, and if not, they'll manage it.
Right, this is how it's now panning out. Lewis Hamilton leading the race, 7.5 seconds clear of Sergio Perez. We're imagining they're going to stop again. Charles Leclerc is currently running third. Does he want to stop again? Does he need to stop again? He doesn't need to. Can they make a one-stop work? Verstappen ahead of Norris, 1.8 seconds the gap between them as they cross the line. It was over 2 seconds before the round of pit stops. George Russell currently runs 6th ahead of Carlos Sainz, who's starting to find a bit of pace, certainly in the final sector behind Russell. Then comes Gasly, Alonso and Stroll. So both Aston Martins into the points, but both will need to stop again. Certainly Alonso will need to stop again because he's only run the medium tyres so far. Tsunoda and Ricciardo on the fringes of the points. Ricciardo needs to stop again, I would imagine. He's only stopped the once. Then comes Albon, Bottas, Hülkenberg, Sargent, Joe and Magnussen. We lost Piastri and Ocon, 2 retirements from this race, which will hot up a little bit from now on in to the finish. Hamilton saving a bit of fuel so they can push right to the end, and still needing to pit, we think, one more time. He's been telling his team they've given him an awful lot to do. Is that going to be the case? Where's Charles Leclerc going to fall into this one come the reckoning? And what about Verstappen and Norris, now both on the same compound of tyre?
Good. Let's see what they can do. And Leclerc then just leads from Verstappen and Norris, so your top 3 are all in view.
Can Charles Leclerc frustrate Max Verstappen for a little bit? I wonder. Verstappen's now got DRS behind Leclerc as through they go into turn one. Sergio Perez has pitted. He'll come out behind Carlos Sainz, but will have fresher tyres to the end of the race than Sainz, who's just set a new fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, they're second, third and fourth. Of course, it's Lewis out front on the offset. That's, and he's pushing hard at the moment. Verstappen now starting to set purple sectors, fastest sectors. Sainz has done the fastest lap of the Grand Prix at 1:40.5. And now they're starting to unleash the full potential of these cars.
Yeah, so Verstappen had that DRS behind Charles Leclerc, and he's going to get it again down the back straight. Is Lando Norris only a second and a half behind. He's not going to get that DRS advantage necessarily, not at this moment in time. Here comes Verstappen. Is he far enough back to make a move, or close enough to make a move? No, he's not. So he's going to have to stay behind Charles Leclerc for a little bit longer, and that will be good news for Lando Norris, because Verstappen's not going to be in the clean air that he wants.
So that's Sainz going past Russell, isn't it?
It is
indeed.
Carlos Sainz past George Russell, and whilst one Mercedes gets overtaken, Lewis Hamilton is now going to come into the pit. So Ted Kravitz, I don't know if you're down in the pit lane, might be worth going down to you as Hamilton pits.
Of course I'm in the pit lane, Crofty. That's where I live for the whole weekend. And he comes in, the wheel guns get to action. Is it the mediums? I can't see from down here. It looks like the mediums. Yes, a nice fresh set of mediums as he passes me now in the pit lane. But just on George Russell, he has struggled for pace big time. I've asked Mercedes.
2 seconds, Ted. Verstappen's going for it on Charles Leclerc. Verstappen's got Charles Leclerc with DRS down into turn one. And so Hamilton now comes out. Martin?
Yeah, he had to do that. He had to get through there because Hamilton on fresh tyres, Norris still very much in play. Verstappen needed to get that move done ASAP.
Because Norris's tyres are warmed up and he's just set a fastest lap of this race. So Verstappen then, after his second pit stop, now back in the lead from Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton. Carlos Sainz runs fifth. You were talking about George Russell, Ted.
Yeah, sorry about that, Crofty. Just interrupt whenever you want. If there's something good going on. But yeah, no specific issues, say Mercedes, on George Russell's car. It's just been a difficult weekend for him all along. Doesn't seem to have great pace in this race.
Here's pace, Lando Norris down the back straight. That Ferrari looks a tad vulnerable. That Ferrari has been passed into turn 12. That Ferrari of Charles Leclerc that hasn't made a second pit stop yet in this race has been overtaken by Verstappen and Norris on this lap. Verstappen leads, and the gap that was 2 seconds, or over 2 seconds, was just under 2 seconds after the pit stops, is now down to 1.2.
This looks good. Norris was so fast towards the end of the sprint, wasn't he, yesterday? Suddenly, the McLaren coming alive on the lower fuel loads as well. Verstappen versus Norris. What have you got?
And there, 3 cars in a line, one of which needs to pit again, and one of which in the papaya chasing down the race leader. 1.2 seconds the difference. Elon Musk watching on at Mercedes. I'm sure 140 characters is going to do justice to this race at the end, but he might want to put a social media post out as George Russell comes back out into the race track in a moment behind Perez, and should be ahead of Pierre Gasly.
A fresh set of medium compound tyres. They'll be handy for George, I reckon.
Yeah. 2 Aston Martins go past, Alonso and Stroll. They've only stopped the once during the course of this race. Alonso up to 7th, but he does need to pit again. Stroll could make it to the end of the race on a one-stopper because he's riding the hard and the medium. That's for the minor points places. Out in front, there's what, 2.2 seconds when they cross the line at the end of lap 39. 2.2 seconds separating the top 3. And on this lap, only a 1/10 of a second, just under a 1/10 of a second improvement by Verstappen compared to Norris.
We'll keep an eye on George Russell. Perez also out then on the fresh tyres. Let's see.
And on board for Hamilton now, Martin, as well. I'm just looking at the timing screens. He's on the medium compound tyre. If these mediums last right to the end of lap 56, he might just have the pace here to be very much a factor come the end of this. Don't count out Hamilton for a battle with Norris or potentially Verstappen.
Agreed.
Anthony, to you at race control.
Yeah, so Lewis has been on the radio. He's been told that the pace is very, very good, but he's not convinced he's going to have the tyres left to fight the guys in front once he gets there. It sounds like he's, you know how Lewis sometimes he needs convincing that it's the right thing to be doing right now. And but he's driving his heart out. It's great to see.
Sergio Perez has got the hard tyres on. He's just set a fastest lap of the race. I'm just saying, Perez is only 13.5 seconds off his teammate currently, and starting to lap a little bit quicker as well. Can he find a bit more pace to be a reckoning with maybe Sainz and Leclerc come the end of it? Charles Leclerc, is he trying to hang on to a one-stop here, Martin? Have we gone past the time where they can get Leclerc in and then find him a bit of a gap to run into and maybe use the medium tyres at the end?
Well, he's used two types of dry tyres, so he's ticked the box on the regulations, but they went on lap 22. So that's a tall order for Charles Leclerc to get those to the end in a competitive fashion, especially the way Hamilton and Perez are going behind him, and George Russell, I think, will be flying along shortly too.
Lap 41 of 46, and Verstappen has increased his pace on this lap.
Just info at this stage, Max, but time lost to Checo 39.8, braking 11.12.20.
Yeah, I know, man. My brakes are just...
Yeah, as I say, it was just information.
He's not liking those brakes today. He's not going to want those back again.
No.
GP getting it a little bit from a Max Verstappen who's, well, out in front where we often see him, but having to work a little bit harder to try and get this race win done. I'm going to say, on the last lap, opened up his pace on Lando Norris a little bit. Norris is coming back at him on this race as well. The state of charge, the electrical deployment will come into this. Can Lando use that in areas that he needs to try and not just be a driver of the day winner, but a Grand Prix winner too? Lewis Hamilton getting ever closer to Charles Leclerc. He's suddenly going to get some DRS in a little while to up his pace and then charge after Norris once more.
Yeah, Leclerc doesn't really have any decent pace at the moment. He's going to have to stop again, I'm pretty sure.
Here's the Williams going up towards turn one. Daniel Ricciardo having to defend against Alex Albon, who's looking for something of a switcheroo. And down the hill they come, and he has got that switcheroo switched on. Alex Albon up into 12th place. Bearing in mind that both Stroll might not, Stroll has stopped for a second time, and Alonso, who does have to stop again, well, you never know, Albon might find himself in the points just yet. Sargent's got a black and white flag for track limits. Lewis Hamilton has got a car very close to him, and that car is Charles Leclerc, and he's got DRS on Charles Leclerc, who really is starting to struggle, whilst Hamilton's lapping 139.8 for the last lap, 139.5 for this lap. It was a 141.4 for Charles Leclerc. Is the overtake on into turn one here? Not quite for Hamilton. Thinks just against it, doesn't want to compromise his race result here by taking a lunge too early.
Well, Lewis is like Max when he was behind Leclerc. He needs to clear him into turn 11 as soon as possible. He's got to get past this Ferrari and keep in touch with Norris and Verstappen.
You can see riding on board, can't you, Martin, how that overtaking chance that wasn't quite there has hampered Lewis Hamilton now on this first part of the lap.
He's got to lunge this if he feels confident with it. The track's very dirty offline there, isn't it? So now he needs a good exit, DRS. He's looking at the pickup on Lewis's left-hand tyre. That'll flick off, that's not a problem, but we've surely got a good chance now down into turn 12.
DRS assisted for Lewis Hamilton, 18 kilometres an hour extra pace, and the overtake that he wanted at turn 1 finally comes at turn 12. Hamilton is up into 3rd place, and he'll find himself round about 6 seconds off the lead, and just, a couple of seconds behind Lando Norris.
Look at how he's gapped the Ferrari in 2 corners.
Race is on here. And this is how Lewis Hamilton did it, down the straight with DRS and down to the inside.
Yeah, a little jink left from Leclerc, but Lewis just stuck with it and got himself track position One sweep of the steering wheel with his yellow glove, and through the Mercedes goes.
So here's the battle for the lead. Verstappen and Norris. Norris, who put his tyres on lap 34. Max Verstappen, who responded on lap 35. Hamilton put his tyres on, his medium tyres that he's running on lap 38. Not only are they fresher, but they could well be a faster compound than the hard. Will they last, though? Is lap 38 the magic lap to get the mediums on, to give Lewis Hamilton the chance to charge down Verstappen or Norris, to go and take a potential win or a runners-up spot, or have they left it too long? Have they left him too much to do? Will the tyres last? So many questions to be answered, Martin, by the end of lap 56.
Fastest man out on the track is George Russell, but he's a long way behind sixth place Sergio Perez is George. So I think now the story is what can Lewis Hamilton do from there? Just how fast can he be in the closing stages?
Still a big gap ahead.
Yeah, you're pulling in, mate. You're pulling him in. So forecast P2, maybe the win.
There you have it.
Okay, striking distance 4 laps in the battle for second place. Leaves him a few laps left over to try and get towards Max Verstappen. Remember, Verstappen, 12 months ago here at COTA, overtook Hamilton for the win with 7 laps to go. How Hamilton would dearly like to reverse that and pick up his first win since Jeddah 2021 here this afternoon. And how Lando Norris would quite gladly...
What do you think about plan C or keep plan D?
What the plan C is ruining my race. Now better try. It's too late.
And it's the filing cabinet of options once again for Ferrari, I'm afraid. And his race, I think, is being ruined, and he's being reeled in a bit by Sainz and Perez behind him. Just to finish, before we go down to you, Ted, Lando Norris would dearly love to swap a Verstappen or a Hamilton win for one of his own in a Grand Prix, and he's right in the thick of it, isn't he? Down to you.
He certainly is, Crofty. Yeah, indecision again from Ferrari, but I tell you, an ex-Ferrari driver who's doing very well, Fernando Alonso, started from the pit lane, has just overtaken Yuki Tsunoda on fresh tyres for P9, so that's 2 points at the moment for Fernando Alonso. Good recovery for him, but where has Sergio Perez's pace gone, Crofty? He's really fighting Lewis Hamilton as far as the drivers' championship is concerned, but Hamilton is going to score big on him today. Perez cannot close on Sainz ahead.
A couple of laps ago, Ted, he was in the 139s. He's got no traffic around him. He's not had any back markers whatsoever, as we see AlphaTauri up against Haas. Nico Hülkenberg on Daniel Ricciardo, taking 13th place into turn 1. But Perez has dropped a couple of seconds a lap. Did he push too hard, too soon on the tyres, I wonder?
Yeah, he might have taken too much life out of them, but he's now slipped to 16 seconds behind Verstappen. Red Bull really could do with Perez up there on Verstappen's gearbox to help them defend, give them options on pit stops, control the race better. But right now, Verstappen is beginning to pump in some decent times, matched by Lewis Hamilton, it must be said.
Yeah, medium tyres for Hamilton, hard tyres for Verstappen, hard tyres for Norris, who's not got the pace of either of his two